And there you have it. Switzerland have done an Italian job on the defending champions, and they've sent them packing. The first team through to the quarterfinals are the Swiss: Mark Donaldson, Rob Dawson, Shaka, Hislop, Luis Miguel, Echegaray. Big Shaq, let's start with you first. Was the manner of the defeat just as hurtful as the defeat for Italy today?
Yes, it was. I expected a whole lot more from Italy going into these knockout stages, not just to get knocked out now by, let's be honest, a very good Switzerland team. I thought this was anything but an even halfway decent Italian performance. And if you want to sum up the 90 minutes of Italy, just look at the second goal. You concede the first late on in the first half. Fair enough. Switzerland deserve that. You go in, you haven't played well in the first half. You go into the dressing room at halftime. Spalletti gives us team talk. You expect there's a whole lot of shouting. At the very least, a whole lot of soul searching between the Italian players to come up for the second half, planning how to get yourself back in this game. And then moments into the second half, you can see that you do from Vargas. No, we've all been there. We've seen teams concede early in the second half of games. But look at the build-up to the goal. Granit Xhaka picks the ball up. Nobody gets close to him. Exchanges a couple of passes wide on the left. Ball into Vargas. Nobody gets close to Vargas. Now, this when, again, the halftime team talk and players kind of doing soul-searching, as a phrase that is still ringing in your ears. An Italian team does not get within 3 yards of anybody in possession. That, to me, was just a cardinal sin that I'm not sure how you explain or even begin to excuse. Once that ball finds its way into the back of the net, no real surprise that there's no meaningful reaction from the Italians, because at that point, I think you've seen that this Italian team is anything but what we stereotypically expect of Italian football teams.
They're bang average, Shaq. That's what they are. Look, we're going to give the Swiss a lot of love.
But to that point, Mark, we've seen bang average Italian teams, but they at least get close to players in possession.
Yeah,
they at least close spaces down. They do the basics. I mean, we are talking the basics. Let's not, even before we start getting into Maldini and Baresi and start singing some of the great names of Italian defending, this is just basic. I mean, moments into the second half, you cannot get close to anybody in possession 5 yards outside of your box. That's again, this is, we can talk about the Italian stereotypes, you can talk about the Italian grades. This is just, in that regard, blasphemous.
The Swiss deserve a lot of love. We will give it to them. Even though they've got that unnecessary gap in the Toblerone, that if you get it stuck in, it really hurts the roof of your mouth. But we'll not worry about that right now, because, Rob, for me, it's not a surprise that Switzerland are through. This was a tricky one to call, and the Swiss, they draw a lot of games, but they're very hard to beat. And Shaka is saying it was the manner of the Italian performance and the Italian defeat. I think that's the biggest story today, because Switzerland will go on. They'll face either England or Slovakia in the next round, and they'll pose big problems to them. But for the Italians, they haven't learned anything. Spalletti hasn't got them going. He hasn't got them in the faces of the opposition. What next for them now?
Yeah, I mean, the manner, you're right, the manner of the defeat is embarrassing, really. I'm not too sure what the Italian fans expected in the last 16, given that they kind of scraped through that group stage. You know, they were completely outplayed by Spain. I think Donnarumma really was the only Italian player who's come out of this campaign with any kind of credit at all. I mean, they were lucky to be in this game at all, and the players looked like they knew it. And you know, the first half was particularly poor. I think Switzerland have had 10 shots in the first half compared to Italy's 1, and that really tells a story of the entire game, that Italy looked like they were chasing shadows. And Shaka is right, talking about the manner of the 2 goals. Fair play to Switzerland. They're 2 very, very well worked goals, both coming down the left-hand side. But on both occasions, you give a Swiss player all the time in the world in the penalty area just to pick your spot. I mean, the second goal by Vargas is a wonderful finish. One of those goals that perhaps you'll see on goal of the tournament montages by the end of the tournament. But he's had almost a minute really to take a touch and to pick his spot and to bend it in the top corner. I mean, that's just not really what we're used to seeing from Italian sides. We're used to seeing Italian sides, whether they've got great quality or not, being really, really well organised. Historically, you would say that Italian sides know how to defend and defend really well. And if you can't do that basic, then you're not going to go very, very far in the tournament. And you're right, again, you're going to have to give a lot of credit to Switzerland. It's interesting that both of these teams, I think, came to the tournament without much real hope and optimism of what they could achieve here. Italy's qualifying campaign was a bit shambolic, but so too was Switzerland. And there wasn't particularly much optimism in Switzerland ahead of this tournament. No. But they've turned it all around. They headed it. I went to that first game against Hungary, and it was interesting that all the Hungarian fans were really optimistic. They thought that they could really do something at this tournament. The Swiss fans were very, very downbeat because, again, their qualifying campaign had been quite shambolic. They'd scraped through a qualifying group that they should have walked through with ease. There was calls by some Swiss fans for Yakin to be sacked before the tournament even began. And now you're talking about Switzerland into a quarterfinal of the Euros and being a dark horse maybe to get all the way to the final. It just shows you what these tournaments can do to sides.
LME, it would be easy to stick the boot into Italy even more, but we'll leave that for Gazzetta and the various other Italian newspapers because they will absolutely hammer them. Let's give some love to the Swiss. And Rob's right, because they got their results early in qualifying and they weren't great towards the end. A lot of draws, but they got the job done. So they came in kind of under the radar. First game, I thought they were excellent in the first half against Hungary. Second half, when Hungary had a go at them, which surely Spalletti and the Italians must have seen that it really upset them, then they had a go at them in the second half and they were narrowly close to getting a point from that game. Against Scotland, they lost the opening goal. They got the equaliser through Shaqiri. I'm not going there, Shaq. I'm being serious here. Stop
who had
it.
8 minutes? Who had 8 minutes on their Scotland bingo card?
Did we lose against Switzerland?
Rob
No, we
Lewis.
didn't.
When we were playing, Scotland mentioned bingo.
There you go. There you go. Switzerland against Scotland had no interest in attacking last 10 minutes, right? They'd got the point and that was them through. And against Germany, they could have got the win. So then they go into this game against Italy, LME. Are they progressing at the right time and hitting their straps and getting momentum at a good time in this tournament?
Yes, yes, yes. It's not a surprise why there are 18 matches unbeaten, whether they play well in a specific match or they play badly or struggle. This is a well-organized Swiss machine, and Yakin has them really well coached. And as you mentioned, and as the boys have mentioned, as bad, as horrific as Italy were today, Switzerland were outstanding, and they uncovered every single weakness that Italy had. They're well oiled from all the way from Manuel Akanji to, I thought Granit Xhaka was wonderful today, to going up there with the front lineup of Vargas and Bolo and Doye. This is a very well oiled Swiss machine, and if I was England or Slovakia, I would be very, very worried. And this is why in the last episode I was very shocked to hear that Italy were the favorites, just because historically speaking the Swiss have not been able to do the number on Italy. But talking about right now, this is a really good Swiss team, and the only worry for me is when they face tougher opponents, is that sometimes in the final third they're a little too passive, and I think that was happening against today. Italy were just clinging to anything that they could do. So if they face a tougher opponent, that's when Switzerland are going to have to figure out how to unlock them. But make no mistake about it, this is a really good team, and there's not fortune, there's no luck here why they're 18 matches unbeaten. So I'm very impressed by them, just as I am shocked at how bad Italy were. And this is coming from somebody that's watching Bolivia and Peru at Copa America. That first half of Italy was one of the worst I have seen in recent years. But Switzerland, tremendous stuff today.
Can I just say, sorry,
yeah,
on the back of that, I can't help but think of Switzerland 3 years ago knocking France out, albeit by penalties, but 3-1 down with 10 minutes to go, something of the sort. And then all the discussion was around France and their capitulation and appearance of players fighting in the stands and every man of everything else, but about Switzerland. And now we're back to the Euros. We're back talking about, and Luis Michel is absolutely right. I thought this was an outstanding Swiss performance from back to front. Luis is also right to point out Granit Xhaka. You cannot help but see Granit Xhaka control the park today as he did, and just kind of think about the year that he has had since and this is in no means any kind of criticism of Arsenal or anything there, but since leaving there, which could have been seen, going to Leverkusen could have been seen as a step down, as a step back for him. But my goodness, the way he's just kind of risen to everything that's asked of him, both at club and now you're seeing it for country. I think that for me is kind of my biggest takeaway. While we could be very critical of the Italians, my single biggest takeaway is Granit Xhaka, and just how this game has kind of summed up what we've seen of him for the last 12 months.
He's played 836 games this season, Shaka, and he still looks as fresh as a daisy. By the way, a big question for you. In the Shaka power rankings, if Shaka's 1 and Shaka's 2, is it Hislop over Granit, or is it Granit over Hislop in the Shaka power rankings?
Right now, it's got to be Granit. I'll be honest. I'm still working on my shooting. I'm not very strong from outside the box with my left foot, but apart from that, I think Granit has got me beaten. Granit's got Hislop beaten.
Rob, before we head to break and then preview the games that are coming up, it's going to be England or Slovakia in the quarter-final for Switzerland. Does it matter who they face as far as their outlook is concerned? They won't care. They'll feel they can beat either of those two sides, won't they?
They will now. Momentum in tournaments is absolutely everything. They've matched Germany in the groups. Probably should have beaten Germany. They've beaten Italy, not a great Italian side, but, historically a European powerhouse. They've got a fantastic core to their team with a goalkeeper in Sommer. They've got Manuel Akanji, who's been one of the best defenders of the tournament. You've mentioned Granit Xhaka. You've got Mbola up front with pace, who's now fit again. They've also had 7 different goal scorers, which shows that they've got goals in all areas of their team, and they're not a team that's overly reliant on one particular player. And if you can match Germany and you can beat Italy, they won't care if they're facing England, because, as I said, momentum in these tournaments is absolutely everything. And right now, before England's last 16 game, England haven't got any, and Switzerland have got it all. And so if it is Switzerland versus England, they won't fear them whatsoever. They'll believe that they've got the goals, the players in that team to beat anyone. And we've seen teams in Euro campaigns in the past, really, really unfancied at the start of tournaments and just building momentum through the tournament, growing into a tournament, and then all of a sudden you're in the quarterfinal, you're in a semi-final, and anything can happen. And right now, the Swiss dressing room will be bouncing around, and they won't care who it is in the quarterfinals, because they will believe that they've got a real chance at this tournament.
Before we head to break, what's behind the curtains, Rob?
I had to draw them because I'm in Cologne now, and the Scottish fans have absolutely destroyed it, and I didn't want to upset you, so I thought I'd close it and hide the misery.
Half the cathedral's in Glasgow, the other half's in Edinburgh. All their beer's gone as well. Okay. We'll be back to talk England against Slovakia after these. Okay, England against Slovakia. LME, if I gave you $10, Shaka would faint. But if you're putting money on this game, where's the value here? $10 to win $5 if England win, or $10 to win $100 if Slovakia win. Other currencies are available. LME.
If you give me $5, I'm fainting. I think at this point right now, honestly, I'm going with a Slovakia win. And it may be surprising to some, but it really shouldn't be because of what we've seen from England in this competition. There is obvious talent. We keep talking about individual prowess and what Gareth Southgate needs to do in order to ignite this team. Should he start Anthony Gordon? Should maybe Bukayo Saka go somewhere else? Cole Palmer from the get-go? To me, it doesn't matter because England's biggest enemy is England itself. It's the identity that I worry about. It's the passiveness that I worry about. It's the lack of energy that I worry about. And Slovakia, and I think it was Skriniar that said it, I can't remember, but somebody from their squad said it. You know why we think we can beat England? Because we have an idea, a cohesive idea, a cohesive mentality of how to go against England. And obviously, when you look at paper, individually speaking, talent speaking, England should win this. But I'm not seeing anything from the three lions that makes me worry if I'm a Slovakian fan, because they right now are sheep and they have no identity or idea of how to move forward. Now, I could eat my words by the end of Sunday, but that's because everything that I've said has been the opposite. Finally, England come with an aggression. Finally, England come with an idea. Finally, England come with a directness, because it's not always just about plan A. Sometimes you really just have to hit them, right? And Slovakia are going to be ready for it. So at this point, I actually am going against the money. I think that Slovakia is going to win this.
Rob, is it going to be one change? Is it going to be Menu in for Gallagher? And what's the story with Trippier? Because there was some talk that he might be a bit of a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, Trippier has been managing an injury for most of this tournament. He trained today with all the rest of the players. I think 26 were out there training, so you would expect Trippier to start. In terms of Menu, yeah, I mean, that's the expected change. The one change, I think a lot of England fans would like to see Cole Palmer start after his cameo in the last group game. There's also a question about Anthony Gordon. Does he deserve to start? Because England looked a little bit better with him on the field. From what we know of Southgate, he's not a gambler, and I don't think that he is ready to gamble quite yet. I think Menu is the obvious choice to come into midfield just because he gets England playing a little bit better. He's a lot more forward thinking on the ball. He can bring other players into play. I think there's not been that much creativity in England's midfield, and sometimes it does just take one player to come in and get a team starting to play. And Gareth Southgate will hope that Menu is that player. I'm going to go against LME, and I think that England will win. I think that they've got the players to win that game. Obviously, the attacking players. One thing that's maybe been missed a little bit is that England have defended fairly well, and I think that teams that defend well at major tournaments do well, because you don't actually have to score that many goals to win games at major tournaments. You can scrape through these knockout rounds and get to a point where you're in the semi-final and final. So maybe England aren't quite as bad as perhaps people have suggested, but LME is right. They do need to find some kind of creative spark or just a way to gel that team together, because you can't have a situation with Foden and Bellingham and Saka and Kane all on the field and just looking like you're not going to score a goal. I mean, that just cannot be right. You're talking about some of the best attacking players in the world, and for England to have looked so toothless for so many of these games is a concern. But they should still have enough to get past Slovakia.
Shaka, the result is the most important thing from England. But how important is a performance?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure that England are too concerned with performances right now. It really is just about results. The group stage, if you're trying to build on performance in an effort to build on confidence, you do that at the group stage. But there's nothing about England's performance in the group stages that says that's a major concern, that the England are thinking and ultimately will only ever be judged by the result. Now, if England limp through with 3 85th minute winners in the next 3 games, ultimately, I don't think anybody remembers anything else other than how deep England get in the tournament, and that's just the sad part. Well, I mean, sad is not the word. That's just the truth to tournament football, and that's Gareth Southgate's truth. That this team does not have to impress. They don't have to perform well. They just have to win. And I think this is an England team that's set up to do that. To Rob's point, for all the attacking talent that they have, this is a team that's still just going to defend well and hope to get something from one of those brilliant stars in the 85th minute or whenever and win 1-0. That's just the sad truth to it.
Rob, before we let you go, the best teams in this tournament so far have been the brave ones. They've been the ones that have been on the front foot. You've spoken, Shaka's spoken, LME's spoken about this world-class front four for England. Harry Kane, Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka. They've hit the ground running. Jude Bellingham playing in behind as well. How do England ensure that they are brave, they are on the front foot, and they give that front four loads of the ball, let them do their own thing, and go and dominate the Slovakians?
Well, I mean, one solution is to get Mainoo in midfield, which I think will happen. But in terms of, a massive change of identity, we're talking about being in the latter stages of a 2-year cycle. It can't be that we're still talking about these questions about how do you get the best out of these players. And to that point, there's another game tomorrow when Georgia plays Spain, and Georgia have got a very, very clear identity, a very, very clear way of playing. Willy Sagnol sat in his press conference today, and he's faced none of these questions because everyone knows exactly how they're going to play. And that just shows you, it shows you what kind of problems England are running into, because England were meant to be one of the favourites, and ahead of their last 16 games, we're talking about, should Cole Palmer come in? Should Anthony Gordon come in? Should Bellingham play as 10, or should he be dropped? Should Saka play at wing back? The fact that we're asking all these questions shows that there is a problem with England. That being said, it only takes one game, and if England were to beat Slovakia 3 or 4-0, all these questions would disappear, and the optimism and the momentum would be behind England again, and all these problems of the group stages would disappear straight away. It only takes one game, and as Shaka's rightly said, that could happen with Phil Foden or with Bellingham or with Saka or Kane. All of those players are capable of having brilliant moments, and if they all have brilliant games and England stroll that game 4-0, you'll be talking about tournament favourites again. So it only takes one game. The problem is that we've not really seen much evidence of that being around the corner in their first 3 groups games.
Just one quick final bow on this, MD, about England. Rob said something that's really important to remember for everybody. Gareth Southgate's not a gambler. Well, I'll tell you what, he's going to have to be honest with himself, especially during a game, because as wonderful and incredible as Jude Bellingham is, you can clearly see that he can't give you 90 minutes right now. You have to make a decision there. And to be honest with you, I say the same thing about Harry Kane. And I know everybody says he's never going to sub him out or whatever. But these are moments right now, if you want to make it to the quarterfinal, to make big, tough, gambling, honest decisions. Because there are players, big players, that in moments, they're not playing as well as they should have, whether it's an injury or whatever. So Southgate has to be honest. I don't know if that's a gambling thing. I don't know if that's like a self-identity thing, but he needs to look at that pitch and be like, yeah, he's not performing. And I've got a lot of really talented people that can maybe do it. So he needs to do that against Slovakia. If it's not happening, it'll never happen.
Rob, quick word from you before you go on the game that you are going to tomorrow, not the England game. You'll be at Spain against Georgia. You've just spoken about Willy Sagnol saying, look, hey, everyone knows how we play. That's going to have goals, is it not?
It is. I mean, I've been to 2 Georgia games, and their games are absolute chaos. Spain have probably been the standout team so far in this Euros. Perhaps because some of the other big teams haven't really performed to their best, and sort of Spain are sort of last man standing almost. But Georgia have this very, very clear way of playing. And I spoke to their assistant coach, Dave Webb, before this tournament started, and he said, we haven't got the players, the technical players, to keep the ball and have loads of possession. But what we can do is defend with our lives. And when we get the ball, we're going to bomb forward with all the pace we've got in those 4 positions. And we're going to scare teams. And in fairness to him, that's exactly what they've done. And Spain obviously will be massive favourites to progress from that game. But Georgia will know that they can hurt Spain and that they can cause them problems, because they've caused problems to every single team in this tournament, whether they've won or lost. and they will fancy their chances. And if you've got spare time tomorrow, watch that Georgia game, because win, lose or draw, their games are great entertainment.
Definitely.
Give me one last look at Cologne behind the curtains, please. I'm missing it.
It's not, it's done. They're sweeping it up and putting it into the bin.
That's so
There's no
cool.
alcohol left. It's all gone. The beer's finished.
I'll tell you what else is gone. You. Thank you for your help. We appreciate it. Enjoy Spain against Georgia, and we will see what's behind those curtains tomorrow. Thanks to Rob, Dawson. We will end with the preview of the game that's coming up in around about 37 minutes' time. Germany against Denmark. And Shaka, I suppose the headline team news is no Florian Wirtz. He's on the bench. He's been replaced by Leroy Sané. The other one we thought might be a change would be Nicholas Füllkrug coming in. He's done well as a kind of sub so far, but he starts on the bench as well, and Kai Havertz keeps his place up front. But no Florian Wirtz. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, Wirtz has been standout in the Bundesliga this season, and that for me a huge surprise. And then Leroy Sané, for all his talent, for me a little bit inconsistent in a tournament where you cannot be. In the knockout stages of a competition such as this, against an opponent such as this. Denmark come into this knowing that maybe they may be underdogs, but we were talking about teams with clear identities and you know how they're going to play. Denmark are that, and I don't think Germany can afford any passengers. So that's a lot of pressure on Leroy Sané for all his talent. For me, just a little bit inconsistent. I'm surprised about Füllkrug and Kai Havertz starting. I'm not sold on Kai Havertz. I know he's had his moments, and Arsenal fans and maybe some German fans will be singing his praises, but I like Florian Wirtz as an out-and-out centre forward. I like him over Kai Havertz quite simply. And again, at a stage in this competition where you don't gamble. You're not still trying to figure things out. That's who I would have gone with.
And LME, to end up, individual battles in any football game are crucial. And when you've got Toni Kroos, who very rarely gives the ball away, playing in a similar area, kind of defensive midfielder, maybe pushing forward to Christian Eriksen in opposition, who's worried more about the other player between Eriksen and Kroos? And how can they nullify each other, or how can they inspire against each other?
I would say Christian Eriksen is more worried, just because I think Kroos has the capability and the legs probably to really out-visionize what he wants to do. Ilkay Gundogan said it actually really well in the press conference. He was like, the reason why I'm loving playing for Germany right now is one, Julian Nagelsmann has allowed us to be more free, more creative. But the other reason, the main factor, is Kroos. Because, as you said, he's playing in this defensive midfielder role, but he also has the ability to just really see what's in front of him. And I think that's why Leroy Sané is starting. So he can really put some pressure on Christensen on one side, then Musiala on the other one. And I agree with Shaka. I'm not a fan of Kai Havertz in this specific role, but I think I understand what Nagelsmann's trying to do. He's trying to continue this momentum of Füllkrug being the super sub and Kai Havertz dropping like this false nine. But I would be more worried if I was Denmark and Christian Eriksen. Obviously, we know how great Eriksen is, and obviously we know how heroic his journey has been, specifically from the last Euros. But at this moment, I think Kroos is entering this game thinking, yeah, I'm going to take care of business, and I'm going to allow Gundogan to just go up and do his thing. And I think that's what's going to happen.
That's still to come. Kick-off in just around half an hour. My thanks to Rob, my thanks to Shaka, and to LME. Earlier today, the Swiss didn't miss as the Azzurri played poorly. Tomorrow. Same time, same place, boys and girls. Bye for now.